Hey Dirt Magicians! In this video, you're going to grow and care for potatoes in Dee's garden with us in grow bags. Dee is a beginner potato grower, and so we are going to show you the simplest, easy, foolproof method for growing potatoes in containers. Honestly, potatoes are such a great, low-effort vegetable to grow. You can use any container to grow potatoes in as long as it's between 5 to 25 gallons and has good drainage.
For us beginners, Brie, what do you mean by drainage?
It means that your container must have a way for the water to flow out of the soil. If we were growing in something like a pot, for example, for drainage, we'd need to have holes on the bottom and maybe on the sides. The great thing about these grow bags is that they're a naturally porous material, so they have great drainage. What we are growing these potatoes in are 10-gallon grow bags by the brand Lumox. We have linked the product in the description box below for you. And to get started planting potatoes, we want to fill the bag with about 4 inches of well-drained soil and then 1 inch of compost with a minimum of 2% nitrogen, which will be the first number of 3 numbers on a compost bag.
And so what time of the year do we plant potatoes?
You can plant them anytime after the last frost of your region and into late spring, early season. It mostly is going to depend on the days to harvest of your potato plant, as some varieties only take 60 to 80 days to harvest, whereas others take up to 120. So for example, if you were growing a potato variety that took 120 days to harvest, you'd want to plant it much sooner than a variety that only took 60 to 80. Let us know in the comment what your favorite variety is to grow.
That's great. That gives me a really good window of time to plant all the way from early April to mid to late June.
Exactly. Now, unlike other vegetables where we'd use seed, for potatoes, we're actually going to plant an entire potato. And when we bury the potato with soil and we add water and nutrients, new roots and shoots will actually emerge from this potato, as well as underground stems called stolons where new potatoes will emerge.
That is so cool. What a neat plant. Can I do that with any potato I find in the grocery store?
Great question. You technically could, but you'll have much better success if you buy what is called a seed potato. And you can find seed potatoes either at garden stores or by going to a farmer's market and getting it from a local organic grower.
So what's the difference between a seed potato and a regular potato?
Firstly, a lot of grocery store potatoes have actually been sprayed with something called a sprout inhibitor for longer-term storage. So putting them in the ground, we could end up with no sprouts whatsoever. Secondly, seed potatoes are often disease-free, and there are many potato diseases that can completely kill our plants. In fact, the Irish potato famine was a result of one of those potato diseases known as late blight. So buying seed potatoes ensures a disease-free plant to start with. Also, Dirt Magicians, if you're interested in pest and disease management for your other vegetables, then we have a mini course for you. In this mini course, we'll go over how to identify different common pests and diseases. We'll empower you to understand prevention for different pests and diseases. And of course, we'll talk about ecological control as well. So check the link in the description box below for more information on our mini course.
Because I'm new at this, I might as well set myself up for success. So how many potatoes am I going to put into each one of my grow bags?
Potatoes grow best by being planted about 12 inches apart. So for these 20-inch wide grow bags, we can plant about 2 potatoes. And we want to put them in the ground with the sprouts facing upward, as that's where the new shoots will emerge. The sprouts on these potatoes mean that the potato has been chitted, which basically means it's been left long enough to allow for new sprouts to emerge. Now, this process is not necessary to plant potatoes, it just speeds the process up for growing.
Not going to library. That was a total accident. I just had these potatoes lying around in my house for a few weeks.
Well, you were inadvertently speeding up the potato growing process like the fancy horticulturalist that you are, Dee.
So fancy. Okay, now that we've placed them with the sprouts facing up, now what?
Cover these potatoes with another 2 inches of soil and 1 inch of compost. Potatoes do best in a loose, nutrient-rich soil, which is why we have chosen this vegetable potting mix and our nutrient-rich compost.
Okay, cool, got it. I think it's all very simple. But now what do I do in terms of caring for the potatoes? How much do I have to water them? How much sunlight? And what nutrients do I give them?
Great questions, Dee. So let's start with watering. Now, potatoes typically really only need to be watered 2 to 3 times per week at most, unless you're having a really, really hot spring for some reason. The way you can check to see if they need to be watered is you put your finger an inch into the soil. If it is wet through there, then you don't need to water. If you do that and the soil feels dry, then you're going to want to water. And when you do water, you want to do it really deeply so the water is actually coming out the bottom of the container. Potatoes do best in full sunlight, so as many sunlight hours as possible. And in terms of nutrients, a nutrient-rich compost is really all you need for potatoes. Plus, we're actually going to be adding more soil and compost as these potatoes grow. When they get to about 4 to 6 inches tall, we're actually going to bury them completely.
What? What are you doing? You're burying the whole plant? That's gonna die. It took me so many weeks to grow it to this point. Why are you doing that?
That's a fun question to answer. Burying the potatoes once they are 4 to 6 inches tall actually triggers more potatoes. The buried stem turns into those stolons, underground stems I mentioned, and new potatoes grow on the ends of them. It also prevents any potatoes forming from being exposed to the sun, which can cause them to turn green. So we will do this until the container is full of soil.
So cool, Brie. You and I make great potatoes. So for everyone else, if you like our outrageous plant acting, make sure to hit the like button and let us know. And Brie, quick question for you. Now since the potatoes are buried, how am I gonna know when to harvest them?
There's actually 2 windows you can harvest potatoes. The first one is called new potatoes, and that's when we harvest in midsummer, around mid-July. And this occurs right after the potatoes have flowered. Not all varieties flower, so this only really works for ones that do. And the reason they're called new is because the skins haven't thickened up yet on the potatoes themselves. So these are really great for quick eating and roasting, but they do not store very well. The second harvest window is when the potatoes start to die, like the green foliage itself goes yellow and it wilts. This is usually late September for us. Now you're not going to get more potatoes than the new ones, but leaving them in the soil for longer allows the potatoes to thicken up the skin around them so they will store better.
I do love the taste of those early potatoes. They're so buttery. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I will harvest a few of the early potatoes, and then the rest I'll harvest in the fall in September so that I can store them over the winter. So how do I harvest these potatoes?
This is my favorite part of the growing process, and it brings out the little kid in you and is also really great to do with kids. So you're just going to pull the plant straight out and many of the potatoes will come with it. Then you just go digging around for all of those other treasures in there. Another option is to get a tarp out and dump the entire container onto the tarp, and you can find the potatoes that way. Dirt Magicians, if you want to learn about other root vegetables that are fun to dig up too, then we have a whole video all about how to grow carrots.